So to kick things off as kind of an overview intro, what were just some of your earliest experiences with music as a whole to where that you are now working in music full time?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in Minnesota, so Prince was he was amazing. I was like, I think in high school when that was happening, and so I was really into that. And then I went to school at Old Dominion University in Virginia, which was really interesting. So I kind of got introduced to more like hip hop there. It was like 80% black, you know. So that
Mm-hmm.
was a different world for sure. And I really loved that. That was really cool. And then after that, I lived in, I went back to Minneapolis. I really wasn't into music much during, finishing up college. And then when I went to New York, I think I really kind of got back into music. And I lived above a record label, or not a record label, a record store in the West Village. And so I was always going in there and getting recommendations from, the guys there. So that's kind of where I started my, foray into kind of electronic music. And then I met Barkley probably in 2001 when I moved to LA. And I think I was playing jungle or something, on our date, and he was like, "Whoa!" And so I think that was kind of like, "Oh my God," for him, it was really cool. Yeah.
Do you remember the name of the record store that you lived above?
I don't remember anything from New York. It was so much fun. I mean, I love New York. It was the best place for me, I think I was 28 at the time, and I lived there for 5 years. And I just had so much fun. It was amazing.
What brought you out there initially? Was it like a job or something?
Oh yeah, I was working in advertising.
Mm-hmm.
So this company, Fallon McGilligan, which was like one of the best agencies in Minneapolis and actually the country. They were nominated as like the best agency. Said that I could move to New York. They were splitting up with Andy Berlin, and they needed some help working on some clients. And so they asked me to go move to New York, and I did, and they put me up for 6 months. It was incredible, just to kind of like ease me into it, Yeah, so it was a job. And then I moved from New York to LA for advertising for a job with Ogilvy, and then to San Francisco in advertising, to different agencies, and then I went client side in San Francisco. So I was like director of integrated marketing in San Francisco for Leapfrog, which is like a kids company. And then I went and did like marketing consulting on my own for, I think Ella was 2 years old. And so I did that for 7 years. And then
Mm-hmm.
I started working full time with Dirtybird. So long time, yeah.
Was that New York firm one of those big Mad Men, Madison Avenue
Yeah,
kind of firms?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What sort of stuff would you advertise for them?
I worked on Fortune magazine, and then I
Mm.
worked on Bankers Trust, which was a bank company, and then I also was in charge of new business for them. So like new business pitches, stuff like that, and I loved it. I mean, I love advertising. I really do. I still love everything about it.
So you're the kind of person who pays for like the lower tier on streaming services, so you still get the commercials for sure.
Actually, I don't think I do that. I definitely watch the Super Bowl ads and I skip all the other ads. So I don't really. It's fascinating to me though. Like it's always fascinating how people are marketing to people, right? I'm
Hmm.
always watching that. It's just so. It's like I don't know. It's like a part of my DNA.
Yeah, I mean, in the marketing job I actually got after I was interning at Dirtybird,
Mhm.
my boss, one thing he said, he's like, the point of marketing is to get people to make a choice, right? Buy this thing, do this, sign up for this mailing list or whatever. And so
Yeah.
it really is kind of like a psychological art, is like, how do we make people want to do this thing? It's kind of fascinating if you think about it.
Yeah, and the action is like, what action do you want them to take? And I will say though that I've worked on paper towels, I worked on toilet paper, I've worked on Kodak, digital. I've worked on just all different categories, restaurants. It's amazing how similar everything really is. Yeah, when you think about all the different categories and what you really want them to do, is to take some action, and it just takes a while for them to do that, right? So how do you connect with them on a deeper level? And I am like, in everything that I do and try and do, and I don't even think I do it incredibly well. I really try to do this, but it's really about hitting on emotions and what it's like. There's the rational side of advertising and the emotional side of advertising, right? And so for me, it's always been, how do I dig into the emotional side? Because the rational side is here today, gone tomorrow. There's going to be a next best thing. It's going to take over, a bigger percentage off or whatever. That's the rational advertising. But the emotional side for me is like really core to what I love about it. And of course with music, it's like, people want music in their life. And so it's a little bit easier to communicate that. And so you're giving them something that they already want, right? That's like a pleasurable thing to them. You're not asking them to like go open a new bank account, which is not really that pleasurable, right? So it's a different type of thing, which I think it's actually way easier to do marketing for something that people really love. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I really love about music and marketing music, because it's just like, there's only so many things that people really want in their life, and music is definitely one of them.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine doing that same kind of work for something as mundane as a bank, it really prepared you for the music side, I imagine.
Yeah, for sure. It was really interesting because it's like, at some point I was handling like $250 million in ad spend. And as you know, that's like, oh my God, right? But it's just crazy how, mundane things can be, and how reckless I think some people are with the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of testing, and there was a lot of back and forth, but still, it's just, we don't have a lot of money at all in what we're doing, and so we need to make sure that every little thing we do counts, right? So yeah, it's different for sure.
So is that kind of like maybe how the balance tipped? So like, a bank says we need a marketing campaign, the bank has a bajillion dollars to be like, do whatever you want, because it's and you need that because it's more difficult. That's why Capital One gets Samuel L. Jackson to be the face of their company. Whereas with Dirtybird, fully independent, it's like there's that cushion because it's something people want, but you still have to kind of do more with less in a way.
For sure. I mean, the corporations never say do what you want. I mean, they. Here's what you need. You help strategize and you help tell them what goals you're going to make, right? And you tell them you're going to deliver, and you have to deliver. And if you don't, you're in trouble, right? Because the CMO is in trouble. But yeah, it's different. We're definitely more on the line. We don't have a corporation. We don't have corporation money. Or, I know we just sold Dirtybird, the label, to Empire, so it's a little bit different now. And actually, I'm not involved in that right now anymore. People side,
Yeah. Um, so to move things along to Dirtybird, I mean, there's the story. Barkley gets the loan from you, and I think this is how it goes. You tell him you have to do this. If you don't pay me back within a year, then you have to get a real job. That was the gist of it, right?
Kind of. I mean, I just said I would support him for a year. I would give him a year. And if he could so he was doing like digital duplication, like CD, DVD duplication company, and he was making $50,000 a year. And I said, okay, fine, quit your job. I'll support you. But just so you know, like after a year, you have to show me how you're going to make $50,000, because you don't have to make it in that year, but after that year, you have to show, okay, this money's going to come in because I'm doing music and I'm doing all this stuff, right? So that was the agreement. And then I said, well, if you don't make it, if you spend a year doing music and you can't figure it out, then like you're gonna have to go back and get your other job back, or something like that. You're gonna have to get a job, because I was like, I had no idea, if he was good, no clue. He'd been doing. He was like 32, I think, when I met him, and he'd been trying to do it for a long time, and but I wanted to support him, and I wanted to, make sure that he could live out his dream.
He and so many other people are grateful you did that for sure. But at that period, you were still working outside of Dirtybird when he was in that phase, right?
Yeah, and in fact, I think what happened is I think I helped him. I hired him at Leapfrog, and he made like videos and stuff for the research videos, and he did some stuff to make some money. He had to make $10,000, I think, to start the label, right? So we already needed 10 grand. So I hired him to do a bunch of stuff, and then he got the 10 grand, and then he started releasing the stuff. And I was just on the periphery for many years, more like marketing advising, like stuff. He was really doing everything himself. Mostly. It was just like, logos, icons, stuff like that. Just very, very minimal at first, And then when he started doing more releases and touring, I was still working for 2 years, I think, full time. And then I think after, or actually more like 5 years full time. It was really hard, and he was traveling constantly, and I had the 2 kids, and I was working more than full time, and it was really tough, I really had a hard time, and it's just hard when kids are little, It's just, it's not easy.
And so when you decided to do Dirtybird full time, did that in some ways make things easier, just because it was kind of a more like central effort? You weren't at some other job. It was kind of like everybody was working together in a way under the same roof.
Yeah. I think that happened about 10 years ago, when I started working full time, and it was more like I didn't really want to work for him, to be honest. I was kind of like, I was doing consulting, and I was making pretty good money. Doing that, but I was working 3 days a week, and I was traveling a lot. Actually, I was traveling back up to San Francisco 3 days a week when we lived in Venice, and he was just like, stop traveling, I can't take it, like, I need you here, I need you helping me, and I think it's time, for you to start working on the label. And I was like, okay. I said I would start a little bit. I was like, okay, I will quit my job, but I'm just gonna do clothing. That's what I said. I'm just going to do clothing first. And then I was like, I started for like a month, and I was like, oh my God, like, this is ridiculous. So the second I started doing clothing, I was like, like, you don't have a email, you don't have a database, you don't have, like, my marketing just went crazy. And I was like, I can't just sit here on the sideline and watch this happen, right? And it was just so ripe for someone to come in and really kind of take over the business side of things. And he was really working on his own, music and everything. And we had hired Darren to run the label, and it was really just like there was no infrastructure whatsoever. And we didn't, that was it. We had one person. So it was really kind of perfect to kind of come in and start creating the infrastructure for the businesses and figure out, I think, figure out how we were going to do the different companies too. And I think that's really important that I don't think people understand is like, we had Tail Feather Touring, which was Barclay's touring company. We have Dirtybird LLC, which is the label. We have Dirtybird Clothing LLC, which was the clothing company. We have Tail Feather Events, which is a corporation. And it's only set up that way because liability-wise, if something happens on the event side of things, it helps you shield Barclay's touring company. And also, it's really good to know and keep all of your money separate. So you know, okay, the event company is making this much or losing this much, right? And you have this much amount of money to work on the marketing and do all that stuff, right? Same with the label. So it's really like keeping every unit separate was really helpful for us to understand how is everything doing and how do you measure success or failure, for that year. And to be honest, like Barkley never cares about numbers at all. Like he's just like, I just want to go do this thing and how much can I do it with, And it's really hard because he wants to do all the fun stuff and all the really expensive stuff. And I was always the one going, well, yeah, that would be really great to do that, but that we'll like lose hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Like you get that, right? And he was always like, that's a bummer. Okay. But he always has these ideas of grandeur and it's really great because we live up to a lot of them, we do. We do a lot of fun stuff, but honestly, it's it was tough being like the budget person, and the business person that said no, and the person who was like, we can't really hire millions of people, we can't really get an office, we can't really, it's like stuff like that. That was really interesting.
Is that off your plate now that things are more established in the way that they are?
So because we sold to Empire, yeah. So Dirtybird, the label, the clothing company, the Web3 business, and the publishing company are now off my plate, and Barclay's now working on that with Empire. And so the money thing is totally off my plate, except for events, right? Events still kind of there. And we kind of paused events other than Dirtybird Campout right now. Because Dirtybird Campout's awesome, and the budgets are really much lower to execute. So it's a much easier event to produce and to budget for. There's still a huge risk in it, but we're leaving for Dirtybird Campin' tomorrow. So we're really excited about it. We actually sold out all the rooms. We think we're going to actually have a really great walk-up, for the days and nights, tickets that we're selling. So it's really, it's a much lower, risk than camp. So we actually put a pause in Camp Out for this year. We're just looking for a new location and a new investor because we're kind of tired of like the risk, the huge risk that we put on ourselves to execute that event. Yeah.
I mean, it seems like after the pandemic, tons of independent events are having a hard go of it.
Yeah.
I mean, Desert Hearts had to do their last minute
Switch,
complete shift in the event, and I mean, everybody who went still said that was a total blast. So I mean, there'll be those minority of people who will complain, but for the most part, the community is both on board and they understand the plight of it for sure.
I'm trying to figure out what is really happening. Like EDC is doing great. they're selling out like mad, and I don't know. It's so funny as I'm watching you. There's this bird that's eating babies in the nest. It's like a anyway. It's like so perfect for this interview. I didn't know there was a nest outside my window. But anyway, yeah. So I'm not sure what's really happening with the independent, you know, festivals. Because ours, I mean, we saw a little bit of a hit last year, and I don't know. I'm not sure what's happening. You know, with you know, with the I don't know if it's a genre thing. I don't think so, or if like you know, just the smaller events. I think just are. It's just a lot of money and time for people to go to too, and so I think they're having to pick and choose. You know, which ones to really go to and where to spend their money. So I'm hoping that that turns around, and I'm hoping that you know, the economy kind of gets a little bit better, and then we're back in it. You know.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, with all the rooms are sold out at Campin'
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So you know, it's on people's radars, and I mean, you can't forget that EDC is backed by Live Nation. So that is a big aspect in their operations
No,
for
I
sure.
know.
You know.
I know, but it's always like, you know, it's always we always wanted, you know, we wanted to really grow and be more, you know, less risk, and but I don't think it's ever going to be like that. I think it's always huge risks, and I just want to thank like all the promoters out there, you know.
hmm And I mean, I think that sort of energy kind of feeds into what Camp Out is, you know? Like, it doesn't have that corporate feel,
Yeah.
you know? Like, what's it called? I mean, I love Coachella oh so much with all my heart. I went both weekends this year, and, you know, there's a gigantic Adidas activation, this building that's, like, covered in flowers and shit like that, you know, there's a stage branded for Heineken and stuff like that. And it's like, you know, that they're doing what they need to do, right? That doesn't like bother me per se. But when I walk around Camp Out and see like a stage built out of wood, you know, like this like handcrafted stage, it's not the same thing, you know, and like it's a unique offering that has its own value within the landscape for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing. We love it so much. Really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. To shift gears a bit, I wanted to dive into kind of the marketing aspect of it. And so, you know, for a time,
Yeah.
you were in charge of marketing the label, the clothing, the events, you know, tours for other artists, all of that. And so you were talking before about the emotions of marketing and how that, like, how to really get into people's psyche and make them want to, you know, make those choices again. So
Yeah.
what sort of emotions would come with Dirtybird in that sense, and would those change across the different verticals of events, clothing, music
Yeah.
in that way?
So I don't think I think the unifying component of Dirtybird, you know, really was it was sort of like out of necessity at first, which was really interesting because we didn't have a lot of money. We actually called on the community to really and you know be a part of it, to submit designs, to tell us what they wanted, to talk to them more and have them be the input that we wanted for the business, because we needed that from them, you know, like we needed clothing designs, we needed you know, merit patch designs, we needed you know, we just it was kind of a thing that we actually started because of necessity, but then after a while it was like, oh, they really like being a part of this, it is their brand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's really like the emotional component that I think was really important with Dirtybird, that
Mm-hmm.
made everyone not just feel like they were a part of it, but they were a part of it, right? and they could also like they decided what cities the barbecues would go to, right? Because they would vote every year to bring the barbecues to their city. It's just nonstop, like all these little things. We, you know, and on the bottom of our website we have, you know, something that's like, you know, submit your creative ideas. We were always going through people's creative ideas, visual ideas, t-shirt ideas, you know, just tons of stuff that we would always ask them and need their input on. And I feel like they counted on that with us, you know? And it was also just, they were really a part of it, just as much as we were wanting them to be a part of it. Do you know what I mean? So it was really symbiotic in that kind of building that community up. And I do feel like that was really the difference, you know, between somebody just doing it and telling them what they're doing versus, you know, us always asking what we should be doing, right? And I know that I feel really good about that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Really, like, they are a part of Dirtybird.
Yeah, and I mean, overall, back to Camp Out, I really think Camp Out was the first event of its kind to integrate the artists into the community that way. And I mean, because I went to the first one ever when the games offerings weren't as, you know, vast and, you know, specific as they are now. It was a bit more minimal, but because it came from the natural spirit of the artists who almost all those artists played almost every event, and so they knew what it was about and they already wanted to be a part of it. And I mean, like, something similar is like Holy Ship would have those artist activities, but I think that was part of it just because, you know, all the artists are on the boat anyways, and so the fans are going to see them around no matter what. So it's like the promoters are like, okay, well, let's have them, you know, do yoga or whatever.
After they hired someone that worked at Camp Out.
Oh, really?
That's okay.
But yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
But to be honest, you're right. I mean, it all began because we were so approachable, and the artists were so approachable at the very beginning, right? It was like the crew with Justin and Christian and Worthy, and Barkley were just so down to earth. And I think this is like, you see it all the time now with like major artists where they're like, oh, I'm just like you, right? I'm just like one of you. And you're like, no, you're really not. But anyway, you know what I'm saying? It was like, we, you know, starting with the parties in the park, it was like you partied with the fans. They were our friends. And that's what we were used to. And so when Camp Out started, it was like, you know, it was a time for us all to be together too. And it was a time for all of the artists to kind of celebrate together, which was really great. And then actually, you know, it took some coordinating, of course, to be like, well, who wants to play, you know, dodgeball, and who wants to play balloon toss or whatever, right? But I think because so many artists stayed the whole weekend and they played, it was just like they had time to go play, and it was fun playing, right? It was fun playing these games, and I feel like artists and meet and greets are so uncomfortable. You know, it's like, oh, can I just sit around and talk to you? And artists are really, you know, they're very introverted. And so it's very hard for them to kind of have a conversation with their fans, but they can play with their fans, and that is just makes a huge difference, you know? It's really fun.
Yeah, and I mean, just going back to what you said about having the community involved really since day one, it's the artists who play Camp Out, whether it's said or unsaid, I feel like that's kind of the prerequisite, where it's like, if you're going to play Camp Out, you know, you're kind of have to be involved in that way, but I don't feel like that's something you've ever had to, like, ask. You know what I mean? And of course, there are the exceptions, like Big Daddy Kane probably wasn't playing dodgeball and shit like that. But you know the artists I'm talking about, the ones where it's like you're releasing on the label, you're probably gonna come back next year, that kind of thing,
Well,
and it's if it.
people, like they saw it as an opportunity. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, if you really, because they wanted the audience, right? They really want the Dirtybird audience to love them because regardless of where they go in the world, they'll be there. So it's like it's just a
Mm-hmm.
really good opportunity to make that connection with your fans. And we encourage people to stay, on site as much as possible. We're like, I think DJ Snake, where we're like, you want to stay? You want to rent to RV? Come on. It's fun.
Yeah. And I mean, like, to that same point, I remember at Camp In last year, Barkley didn't even give himself the closing set on Saturday night. It was like Walker and Royce played after, but they're like whenever he plays at one of those events, like there's a certain energy happening, throughout the crowd, and I mean, I'm blessed to know him and know you and know people in the community, and like, I'm an avid person who's like being up on stage like really isn't that big of a deal. Like you want to be out in the dance floor and stuff.
Yeah.
But if it's Barkley's set at a Dirtybird event,
Yeah.
being on stage is just like it's just that microcosm, and you see like this is where like this what's happening right on the stage is what started everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's and that's not to say you don't get that at other points in the festivals. That's just, me being in a grateful position to be able to experience that like version of it for sure.
Yeah, and it's funny because every time there's like a new stage manager or a new tour manager or something, they're all like, "Oh, don't get close to the DJ," and you're like, "Actually, go for it."
It's like I think he's all right. I think he's all right with it, just a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of that fan input, how does that get balanced with these big ideas that you and Barkley have? Because you mentioned that like he has these big ideas, and being on the back end when I was, he's decisive about what he wants to happen. So how do those two forces kind of balance each other out?
So I just do a lot of the fan input. He doesn't really
Mm-hmm.
do that as much, and then
Mm-hmm.
he gets what he wants most of the time.
Yeah.
It's interesting. He doesn't get the money for it, but he gets the ideas. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's always been kind of a little bit of a battle with him, to be honest. So I don't know. I always say to him, I never ask him to do anything that he doesn't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he only can do things that he wants to do, right? If I ask him to do something that he doesn't want to do, and I've done that a couple of times, and it always backfires on me. Because he's always changing his mind and trying to wiggle out of it, and I'm like, oh, why did I do that? You know what I mean? So it's a little like, it's hard for people to sort of see our debates, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think we debate a lot, and I push a lot on certain things, but like on the marketing side of things, I'm like, dude, I mean, you can't argue with me, right? But he does all the stuff that he wants on his on Cloud Monster. I've learned to just stay out of it. Like I'm not involved,
Mm-hmm.
and I love
Mhm.
that because I
Yeah.
don't want to deal with that. You know what I mean? I want him to run his own name, and Barkley Crenshaw. I want him to do all that stuff. But to be honest, we had some really like every time we go away, like we were just in Europe for 2 weeks or whatever, and we love to brainstorm ideas, and we come up with some really really fun stuff together. That
Mhm.
when it comes down to like idea generation, we have the best time, and we do really well. And then when it comes down to like execution and money is where the problem comes in, right? Because like it's always great ideas, and then it's like, okay, now what can we really afford to do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, I want him to do and get as much as he can possibly get and want, you know, out of
Mm-hmm.
everything that he's doing. And he really does have, like, his mind is constant. His constant thinking of ideas, and it's kind of annoying because because it's like, I thought we were done with that. I thought we were moving on with that, you know. But honestly, like, that's what I do not manage him. I mean, people say and think I manage him, but like, I'm the COO of his companies, right? And the CMO of his companies. And so I help him, you know, find the right photographers and videographers and, you know, hire the right people. And I do all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But he definitely drives the ship, which I think all artists need to do. 100%,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And we've managed some people here and there too. Um, and you know, I think that's really um, and also we do like the POC mentoring, you know, scholarship thing, and it's just, I think it's just really important that everyone understands that as the artist, the really successful artists are driving everything. They're driving their teams, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
they are always asking more and more and more, and it's like it's kind of relentless, you know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, relentless is what it takes from the artists I've spoken
I
to over the
know.
years. That's for
I
sure.
know, isn't it amazing? I mean, it really is what makes them successful. They're so
Mm-hmm.
dedicated.
And definitely. And so I want to talk about kind of just the innovation and adaptability of Dirty Bird,
Okay.
and I'm relating this to two aspects, which are streaming and NFTs. And when the pandemic hit, no one knew what to do, but it seemed like streaming was this thing that might provide some relief. And Dirty Bird very quickly was able to integrate, this whole program
Yeah.
of streams and content. And then
Oh,
another one
20
was
hours
the
a
NF.
week. It was crazy.
Yeah, and then another one was NFTs, and I mean, it seems like NFTs aren't even really part of the conversation anymore. Could be wrong about that, but when they were part of the conversation, boom, like Dirty Bird immediately has like the flight club and the different bird designs, and made however much profit. Well, I mean, I don't know if profit's the right word, but there was some money involved in that. But and so
Some
just
crypto involved, which is
yeah.
not there
um,
anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, but either way, regardless of that side, it demonstrated this very strong ability to
Yeah.
take something that came seemingly out of nowhere
Yeah.
and thrive with it. And so, on the business side, what do you think allows you guys to do that? I mean, is it just pure like hard work and crunch time, or is there just describe that a little bit?
Yeah. I think I mean when the pandemic hit it was really hard because we had to lay off all of our staff except for I think we kept Nicole on. She was the only person um, that we kept on, and honestly we're like, how are we gonna survive? We didn't really know. And it was really really hard, and I think DJs really just felt like that was the only thing they could do, right? And
Hmm.
so I think everyone was just kind of scared, you know. To be honest, Barkley never loved streaming at all. Like, he never loved doing any of that pre-pandemic. And then he
Hmm.
kind of started to, you know, enjoy it a little bit. And I think, I don't know what it was, if it was just like, I think there needed to be an outlet, right? For the DJs and for the label. I felt like that was the only way we could kind of keep the community together, you know. But it was, I don't think we did have sponsors, but the cost of actually running the stream took all of the profit or any of that. It was basically just a wash. So it was really just keeping it alive. And I think the only really, really fun time I had was Couch Out, because that was hilarious. And that was funny, and how we did the 4 teams, and everyone had their color bandanas, and they all, like, it depended on how many times they commented, how many points they got, and then we did it for 5 days. It was incredible. It was, like, the most fun. And it felt like a little bit of, Camp Out kind of came together. Probably like 10%, but still, it was really fun. And so I think it's just something that we do. It's just in our DNA to keep it together,
Mm-hmm.
On the NFT side of things, to be honest, I didn't really play a role in that at all. And it was really all Barkley. And it's really interesting. He and I are super art fanatics, right? And so I think that was also part of that, was like finding out what was really going on with NFTs in the art world. And then Dirtybird was the first label to do the NFT, and NFTs, I believe, the very first. So it was like we just jumped on it, and we had Birdcap, we had relationships with artists, that we loved, and that we really worked it. And then we somehow, got connected with Blake Shine's boyfriend, who did the NFT automation stuff. So it was just super, it was like, it just connected. And I think Barkley wasn't touring, and so literally he put his heart and soul into it, and he still loves it. And I think that it was a really fun, endeavor. And I think that money-wise, who knows how it'll ever pay out or not, with crypto. I mean, this is how I am. As you can see, I'm not very optimistic about money. Because I've been through it, right? So many times. But to be honest, it's like you have to go for it. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
It did really.
I mean,
it was incredible, right?
yeah. And I mean, you say you're not very optimistic, but to a certain point, there's been the unprecedented challenges, but it's always persevered to a certain way,
It has.
to a certain degree. And so with that, with those years of perseverance, does that maybe take a little bit of the edge off? I'm wondering. Seeing it come through a bit.
Now,
Yeah.
definitely, where we're at, we're in a different place, which is really great. But Barkley will constantly, probably be touring, and because it's his love. But yeah, I really feel like, I mean, I think it's 18 years now or something like that of hard work, and especially Barkley doing it for that long. I think it's definitely it has been his legacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Yeah. And then just one final question. With this new phase, label under Empire, events a little in a moment of flux, new things like NFTs coming up. Seems like, and then, it seems like at least the pandemic woes seem to basically be over, at least in terms of like restrictions and stuff.
Yeah.
And so definitely feels like kind of a new chapter that seems maybe a bit more flexible. Where do you see Dirtybird going in the future?
I don't know exactly about the label, but I will say that Barkley's still A&Ring it. And I know, the clothing is great, and everything on that side, I think, is just going to get more funding to sign more people and to expand the label, which I think is going to be great. I know Darren's working really hard on Dirtybird. He's still the label manager, and signing up a lot more artists, which is really amazing. So I only see that going great. On the event side, I'm just not sure yet where we're gonna net out, to be honest. It's like I think it's always been like that. It's always been like, well, let's just see how this year goes. Well, let's just see how this event goes. Let's see how Camp Out goes. Let's see how, You know what I mean? It's always been this like touch and go kind of thing. But it's like honestly, we're just tired of taking that huge risk, against
Mm-hmm.
our family and our house and everything. So, but I don't really know. It's really hard to tell, you know? So I think we're just so grateful for the audience that stuck with us. And then, Barclay's always touring and Claude's always touring. And so I feel like that can't be discounted. They're always, artists are constantly touring the country and the world, with Dirtybird and with the releases and, continuing with the community. So I don't want to discount that. That's actually like the number one thing, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
just the Dirty Bird events, the bigger events are the ones that are just kind of at risk right now.
Yeah, I mean that it's certainly, like we mentioned a bit. It's certainly a reality that not just Dirty Bird is facing for sure. But I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I'm of the opinion that independent events are too important to people.
yeah,
Like I don't think the community will let those go. You
yeah.
know, and I mean the like I don't think I need to say more than that. I think
Yeah,
that's what I truly believe for sure.
yeah, I agree. I mean, it would be great to continue and keep going on that front. So in lieu of like this weekend's gonna be so amazing, and I'm sure camping will continue. And I just think that it's just the other stuff where it's just we'll see where it ends up, but it's never like we've never lost money on an event. It's never been a bad thing. It's just like it's always been just on the edge. Do you know what I mean? It's just like
Hmm.
the stress of it all is just so overwhelming. So
Hmm.
I don't think people understand that what people go through that own these events, these smaller events and the stress level that they go through. So it's just, we're just gonna take a break and see what happens, and if there's somebody who or a company that has some money and wants to invest and actually blow it up, it could be incredible. It will. I mean, it's ripe for just that. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly excited to see campouts return for sure.
Me too. Me too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was all the questions that I had. Thank you so much for taking the
Yeah.
time in the few days between when you head back out. Is there anything you'd want to just add while we're still in the recording?
No, I think I just want to
Yeah.
say thank you. Thanks for being great. Love it. Great talking to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, yeah. Thank you so much, and hopefully we can keep in touch a bit more
Yeah,
and
definitely.
enjoy camping.
Okay. Thanks
All
so
right.
much.